Fiendsmith has transformed Archfiends into their final form and made them into the most competent version of the deck yet. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to play it. From live duel scenarios, basic plays and techs, right the way through to the advanced concepts of the deck. Let's do this. So we're starting off with a pretty strong matchup. We're against Lightsworn Tearlaments, and spoiler alert, I won 2-0, which is hilarious. But anyway, we've got Bone Archfiend into Vision Resonator. That's going to search for a Crimson Gaia, and then we can bring it back into our hand, go into Sulking Yama. This will search for Aruha. We can then pop Crimson Gaia. We didn't open too much, so we're going to go into Soul of Rage, activate Tractus, bring Lurry into our hand. Lurry, when it's discarded, automatically summons itself, and now we basically have full Fiendsmith combo. So we're going to go into Sequentia, then bring the Light Fiends back into our deck, fusion into Lacrimosa, summon our Fiendsmith, overlay into High Wave King Caesar, and then that's going to be all she wrote. They also have a Lightsworn Archfiend. That's pretty cool. So they're going to use its effect. We're just going to stop it straight away. They're going to activate Dragon of Lightsworn, try to Ash Blossom that as quick as possible. They're going to use Rhino Heart, and this is where it gets a bit nutty, into Lulukaros. I don't know why I didn't stop that. I thought maybe there's going to be something else, but they're going to attack. That's going to be our turn. We're going to use Fiendsmith once again to go into Tractus, discard the Lurry. So this is standard stuff. You've seen it all before. Into Fiendsmith Requiem, and then get rid of that, summon Fiendsmith out, and then its effect allows me to equip a Requiem, and then we can send monsters into the graveyard, and they're going to respond with using the Solik, and that's going to negate one of our monsters. They can revive Rukalos, but that's okay. We've done a bit of damage here. We're going to use Beatrice. This deck is really good at rank 6 Exceeds, so using High Wave King Caesar and using Beatrice are really fundamental to how this deck functions. So we've sent a Heiress using Beatrice's effect, which lets us go into Glitch. We can use Yama, bring Unchained Soul of Rage back onto our side of the field. Now we've got a bit of extra disruption here. We've got 4 pieces of disruption effectively. So Judgment Dragon, let's get rid of that. Go into SP Little Knight. Let's banish the Dragon of Lightsworn from the graveyard. And now we can go ahead, send another Heiress into the graveyard to bring something into our hand. This was a bit of a misplay because I've got Archfiend Glitch face down, and I was thinking, oh yeah, I can use this later, but I don't have any Fiends, so I just turned it off completely. It is what it is, people. So they are now going to bring Felice onto their side of the field. I think with enough disruption, we kind of dealt enough damage so that they couldn't really combo off. And then we've got this basically infinite recursion here with the Fiendsmith. Banish off of Labrynth into Bone Archfiend, go into Chaos Archfiend, one of the win conditions of this deck. Amazing. 5,000 attack, look at it go. Get rid of a few cards into Bone Archfiend. That locks us into Dark Dragons, which isn't great, but all we're doing here is just outputting damage. So far it's 1-0 to Archfiends. Solar Recharge into Lightsworn Archfiend. That's going to bring the Dragon onto their side of the field. I'm not going to lie, the end board they make is very impressive. So let me just show you. They're going to go into Athena. That's going to targeted send a bunch of Lightsworns into Felice. Then they're going to mill even more stuff. This is why Tearlaments works very well with this deck. Into Visas Amritara, and then Tearlaments Scream, and then Punishment Dragon. And here we go. We've got more graveyard shenanigans here. We've got Rukalos, which is the negate, and then they've got the Enlightenment Dragon, which is the just destroy everything, and they've got the Undead Vampire as well. Good thing is that, you know, they got rid of a bunch of cards and we managed to plus off of it, which is nice. They've got Collider Heart, they've got Minerva, which destroys stuff. So our turn, we're going to go ahead and use Tractors straight away and go into our Lacrimosa and then also our Lightsworn Archfiend. So we could, at this point, go into like Chaos Angel or something. They're going to use the Field Spell to spin our card, and also Called by the Grave, of course. So Fabled Lurry off of Tractus. They're going to negate it with Rukalos. We've got our normal summon still. For some reason, they negated it, because, you know, why not? Anyway, let's send Farfa. Let's get rid of their Enlightenment Dragon. Just turn that off. And now we can try to summon our Lightsworn Archfiend into Chaos Archfiend. But of course, they have Mudora in the graveyard, which is just fantastic. And then we go into Doomsday Star, or Typhon. And then we have just a bit of extra damage here to attack through stuff. And then we're going to set our Simul Archfiends, and that will be the end. So you might be thinking, how can we win? You know, what's the deal here? So they can't activate any of their effects here until they negate it, of course. So that's going to be Typhon dealt with. And now they have a bunch of other effects that they're going to activate. So they've got Tearlaments Kashtira, they've got Rhino Heart, and they've got Keldo to kind of like beef up their deck because they're running pretty low. And then I think at this point, this is the classic example of someone trying too hard to show off. So they're going to attack for a bunch of damage. We've got 1700, they've got 8000, but they also have nothing left in their deck. They were wondering, how come I couldn't fusion summon? How come I couldn't swing for game? That's because we have one of the strongest disruptions in the game, and that's Simul Archfiends, which is basically Dimensional Barrier. So that's 2-0 to Archfiends versus Lightsworn Tearlaments. So here's a game versus Ghoti, which is quite a cool deck, basically fishes that banish themselves. So they're going to use the Lifeless Leafish, and we're going to use, what's it called, Ash Blossom to stop it, and then they're going to go into Abyss Keeper. The interesting thing here is that they basically set themselves up to special summon tuners from their banishment, and then that lets them synchro summon almost immediately. So I'm going to force them to synchro summon using Imperm, and then they're going to banish more stuff, and that obviously allows them to summon themselves from banishment, bringing more cards into their other zones, and then using more tuners to synchro summon again. So they've got the Askan, the Bicorned Ghoti, and then of course they've got the other monster as well. But then we have Nibiru, because they summoned 5 times on our turn. So we thought, you know, just Nibiru the whole field, that'll do nicely. But we didn't really open anything else, to be honest. So we've got Vision Resonator, we've got Muckraker, and then we're just going to attack into the token and swing for 1000. And then just use our disruption for next turn to hopefully go into something a bit more impressive than that. So they're going to recycle 3 of their cards, draw 1, and they hard drew Evenly Matched, which is... I couldn't believe it when they did that. So we chained it with Simul anyway, just in case they tried to like synchro summon a bunch of stuff. But all we've got is Muckraker. It gets banished when it leaves the field because of the Ghoti effect, which is quite strong. And they've got a Spell Trap Negate, but that's about it for now. And then they're going to bring all of their tuners onto their side of the field. We're going to revive Archfiend Heiress, mainly just to discard the Lurry, so that's going to summon itself. So they're forced to just banish this here. We can bring Lurry out, and now we can go into our full Fiendsmith combo. So here, once they finish dealing with all of their special space fish, we're going to go into Requiem. They are going to force a synchro summon into White Aura Whale, and that misses timing anyway, but I just put it in defense mode. And then use Requiem to destroy the Dragite, so that allows us to use our spell and traps once again. Activate Sequentia, fusion into Lacrimosa. Lacrimosa is going to bring the other Fiendsmith onto our side of the field, and they're going to summon more of their tuners, which, you know, as you do. And then Fiendsmith is going to discard itself, and they use Ghoti of the Deep Beyond, which is basically their win condition. So that banishes everything when it's summoned, and then it brings itself back on the turn after that. And I misplayed heavily here. There wasn't really anything I could do, but I thought to myself, I can use Fiendsmith to summon itself and then do some link plays. And I didn't realize that I had already summoned Requiem, so I just have this 200 attack monster staring into the face of 5,500. But it's okay, I still have life points, I can still do this. We hard drew a Fiendsmith. Okay, so we're going to discard Fiendsmith. We're going to go into Fiendsmith Sanctus, summon a token. That's going to go into Requiem, Requiem into the Fiendsmith. They don't really have anything anymore because they've got a bunch of tuners, but nothing else. So we can send their boss monster, and then we can summon Fiendsmith and then just attack a few of them, and then overlay into Highwave King Caesar. They'll activate Nibiru. We're obviously forced to negate that. And then we'll just activate Archfiend Labrynth just to boost up the attack, just so we've got some sort of big body on our side of the field. And of course, they're going to go through all of their plays again. I assume, because they've got another evenly matched, they wanted to crash and then activate it, but then they realized I would have just gotten rid of Labrynth, and I still would have been in a favorable position. So we hard drew Tour Guide, which is nice, because now we can go into Rhino Warrior, and we can use Fiendsmith as the infinite Fiend recycle engine to bring itself back as a disruption basically every single turn. It's great. But then I don't need to go any further because I calculated and that's just enough damage to go for game. So that's Archfiends versus Ghoti, and Archfiends win. Okay, so this is Archfiend Smiths versus Ogdoadics. So we have our Fiendsmith, which is immediately reacted to withdrawal. So I guess that's my turn done. And they're going to use the Null, and I'm going to try and Ash it. There isn't really... I don't know every line in Ogdoadic, so it's quite hard to anticipate what they're going to do. But if I get rid of King of the Feral Imps with my Fiendish Golem, that does hurt quite a bit. I don't know why they have Serpentine Princess. A bit weird. But anyway, Tractus into Lurry. Lurry, summon itself, then flip summon. And then Fusion into Lacrimosa. That can bring back Lightsworn Archfiend. They're going to go ahead and use Infinite Impermanence. It seems every time I try to go into Chaos Archfiend, they stop it, and I'm forced to go into something else. But anyway, summon Fiendsmith, link those into Sequentia, bring Crimson Gaia into our hand. So now if I wanted to, I can bring that Fiendish Golem back as a once per turn banish. And then, unless I put it in the Imperm column, great. It's fine, it's fine. Go into Muckraker and then burn for a bunch of damage. Equip D0A with Sequentia, so that gives me some negates, and then I just sort of like summon an extra monster just as a bit of extra defense. They're going to go into Reika no Musho Dokuro, and then they're going to attack, and then because I sent Lacrimosa, I can just do 1200 extra damage for game. So that's game 1 to Archfiendsmiths. Right, so game 2, so I sided in a Dark World Puppetry. I thought that would come in handy. And they are going to go into their Knight Sword Serpent, and then I'm going to negate using Imperm, and they're going to summon King of the Feral Imps. That's what I probably should have waited for, to be honest, but it's okay. They're going to summon more of this. So it's kind of like an Ogdoadic with the new Rika cards, which is quite interesting. So they're going to have their continuous spell, summoning more cards from their graveyard, and then they're going to bring a trap card into their hand, which like destroys a bunch of cards. Our turn, we're going to use Crimson Gaia, and that is going to bring Vision Resonator, and then use Fiendsmith, go into Tractus. Tractus is going to bring probably Lurry, yep, and then we can summon it immediately, see if they're going to disrupt anything. Yeah, so they're going to shotgun it straight away, destroy it, but that's okay, because now we can go straight into our Fiendsmith and into Requiem and just continue our plays from there. Unless, of course, they've got some sort of negate here, which they do. It's an Imperm. So we can see if they're going to activate it now. Of course they are. And I don't think I've actually normal summoned yet. Go into Sequentia and then bring Fiendish Golem and then also Fusion Summon into Lacrimosa. Bring the Fiendsmith onto our side of the field. And now we can overlay if we want to, or we can use Muckraker from the Underworld as well. So that is going to bring Archfiend Empress onto our side of the field. And now we have Labrynth, so we can target Empress, get rid of the Muckraker, summon Emperor, and now we can deal some damage. So we've got Emperor's attack, and then we have Lacrimosa, and then we have Empress as well. So on their turn, do they have much that they can do against this sort of field? So Empress can, you know, recycle stuff. They're going to bring Ryza onto their side of the field, in addition to Tokage, and then revive their Link, and then go into this Link 4, which looks pretty impressive. So Dark World Puppetry, which is really nice, just recycle some stuff, and then just attack and swing for game, I think. So yeah, there you go. So Ogdoadics lose to Archfiendsmiths. This was an interesting game. So this is Paleozoic, so I haven't really been against them in quite some time. So they just set 5 and pass, you know, the jump scare. We have Lightsworn Archfiend just putting itself back to mill a bunch of things. In my final build, I actually get rid of one of those. So they have transaction rollback, so they can activate all of their Paleozoic cards to disrupt, and then transaction rollback can then take one from the graveyard and then activate it again effectively. So accumulated fortune, because they chain all day, it's basically a Posse of Greed for the deck, so why not? This is like Odeon incarnate, right? So Bone Archfiend, destroy their card, and then they're going to go into Opabenia, which is pretty decent, so it's unaffected by monster effects. They've got more disruption face down. We're just going to synchro straight away into Chaos Archfiend. Are they going to get rid of it? They're going to deal some damage with Chain Detonation and then summon a bunch of monsters. Okay, Waboku. So these transaction rollback to stop me from swinging into everything. So Waboku's quite a nice tech in Paleozoic. Overlay all 3 into Anomalocaris. Didn't really do much from what I can see. So Needlebug Nest is just going to mill 5, and then Chain Detonation, I guess, is going to do a bit more damage. It's only 500 damage though, so I don't know why. I think that's kind of a bit suboptimal. Unless someone knows different about the deck, just let me know. We have quite a lot of damage here though, so unless they have like another Waboku or something, I don't think they are going to survive for this. So Chaos Archfiend with 5k, swing into everything, but so they had that trap card, which basically means I can only attack that one card. So they did buy a turn. They're going to attack our monster and then set more cards face down and then end their turn. So we have Fiendsmith Requiem into the regular Fiendsmith, attach the Link monster. So we're going to try and get rid of one of their cards, I assume. And then they've got Chain Healing. It's pretty cool. They're going to send our monster to the graveyard and then banish our Chaos Archfiend. But you destroy the Archfiend, Chaos Angel takes its place, so we can banish some stuff and then just swing for game. So Archfiends beat Paleozoic. So now this is Archfiends versus Yubel. So this is the Pharaonic sort of like Sarcophagus Yubel build, which I think is a bit suboptimal. I don't think it's the strongest version of the deck. So we have Fiendsmith into Tractus, and then Sanctus to summon the token into Requiem. And now we have the regular Fiendsmith, and they're going to infinite impermanence it straight away. I don't think they read the card, it's okay. Lacrimosa into the Fiendsmith, overlay into Beatrice. Beatrice is going to get impermed. We would have sent an heiress, which would have granted us like a similar Archfiends or something. We have a Sequentia, and then Sequentia is going to fusion summon into Diasire, and then we can equip it with Sequentia, so we have like a negate, and we have Imperm as well. So this is like 1, 2, 3, 4-ish disruptions here. So they're going to summon their Sarcophagus Horus fellas, and then we're going to use Beatrice into Farther to banish their Horus monster. So they're going to try and bring 2 imperms. That's crazy. So we're just going to negate that right there and then. And then they're going to overlay into Typhon. And now we'll imperm that to stop them from spinning one of our monsters back into our hand. Okay, so pretty favourable now. So Crimson Gaia, just to kind of bait out an Ash effectively. Use DS Array to negate some stuff. And then we're going to banish a card to destroy a card into Moon of the Closed Sky. And then link all of them into the Underworld Goddess of a Closed World. Very, very good card in this deck because it's a light fiend, which means you can go into the Fiendsmith stuff, or you can just go straight into the Kaiju effect. And this is kind of like all they wrote, really. So they didn't really have much here. They finally drew into the Yubel stuff. And that, in my opinion, is the problem with the Sarcophagus build. You either draw like the Sarcophagus stuff or the Yubel stuff, but it's kind of clunky. By the time they drew into the Yubel stuff, it was too late. There is always game number 2. So they're going to go first, set to an end. That's pretty decent, to be fair. I don't know why they didn't activate Nightmare Pain. They definitely should have. I guess they were scared of like an Ash or something, which, to be fair. So we have Sequentia. That is going to go into the Lacrimosa. Lacrimosa is going to summon Fiendsmith. Link into Sulking Yama. That's pretty decent, you know. And then equip. And then pop it. And then we'll summon Aruha, and that will link later. Summon the regular Fiendsmith into Wave Hiking Caesar, and then Soul of Rage. So that's like 5 disruptions there. It's pretty decent. We'll stop Spirit of Yubel, but of course it's going to float unless we stop it again. And then they're going to use Eternal Favorite, so they're kind of forced to use all 3 of their sort of like summoning methods there. Ash, the Spirit of Yubel as well. So we have Simul Archfiends, which is really strong, and Infinite Impermanence. And then they drew, I think they hard drew that King's Sarcophagus, which was quite cool. So we're kind of forced now to just use Little Knight, and now we can banish something. Let's get rid of the Sarcophagus and then use Imperm on Spirit of Yubel. So we kind of we drew the out, people, what can I say? So they have Nightmare Pain face down on the Imperm column, which is disgusting. And then they use Typhon and then get rid of everything. Draw 2 cards off of Triple Tactics Talents, but I think did they already normal summon? I don't remember anymore. I don't know why they didn't just use that. It makes no sense. Maybe they were afraid of something. Who knows? Anyway, Spirit of Yubel is going to add another Nightmare Pain, and then Lurry into Requiem, Requiem into Fiendsmith, and then of course we can equip the Requiem if we want to. You use Vision Resonator to bring Crimson Gaia, go into Closed Sky, and now we're going to go into Underworld Goddess of a Closed World once again. So it's like what goes around, people. So Crimson Gaia is going to bring the Resonator, get rid of it into Bone Archfiend, Requiem just to boost the attack up, and then I think that's just enough for game. So yeah, about 400 off. So there you go. So Archfiends versus Yubel. Now this is Archfiends versus the new archetype, Ashened, which is a really cool archetype. So we go first. So Desric Archfiend into Requiem. We drew nothing. It was absolutely horrendous. But we've got Simul. So a really, really strong card, turn 1. Even if you don't have any other than negates, it does basically end turns depending on the deck. So they use the Pot of Prosperity, into Obsidian. And I don't know what to ash. I think probably Priestess is a good one, but I did it on King of the Ashen City because that would have basically summoned anything. So yeah, they're going to bring Hero and Priestess, pop the field spell to summon the Vados. One thing I learned from this particular match is it's Vados or bust. If they don't have a way to bring Vados onto my side of the field, they are pretty useless and without more support, to be honest. So anyway, Farther, banish something, Requiem, send a monster to the graveyard. They are going to use their continuous spell. It couldn't do anything because they needed Vados, and that's already in the graveyard. So straight into game 2. So they opened Prosperity. Once again, banishing 6. Kind of pointless trying to ash something like that. Just wait for them to do something more decent. So they bring the field spell, and then I droll them. Another thing I've learned is that this deck plays really well under droll, because this card, Extinguishing of the Ashened, sends stuff to the graveyard and then puts it in the hand. It's really good. And then Obsidian, of course, summons straight from the deck. So they don't really need to add anything into their hand. So if you face Ashened in the future, don't bother drolling them because it won't work. Tour Guide into the Fiendish Rhino Warrior, link both off into Muckraker. They are going to use Ash Blossom on Fiendish Rhino Warrior, and then they have Super Polymerization into Starving Venom, which is pretty impressive. So Starving Venom, just a bit of an attack boost. We have nothing to at this point in time, so their turn. Priestess, we're gonna use Imperm on them to also turn off their face down, which is pretty decent. And then they can use Extinguished, so they banish Banish, and that lets them fusion summon. So I used Simul to stop that because they obviously have Starving Venom on their side of the field. So Archfiend Heiress into a Weiss, Lightsworn Archfiend, and then Rhino Warrior is going to send Fiendsmith, so the next turn I can bring it out, then either go into Chaos Angel or something similar. Little Knight though might pose a problem, so we will summon Requiem and then go into Fiendsmith and then attack over it, and I think they probably surrendered. Yep. Alright, so Archfiendsmiths versus the Ancient Gears with the new Ancient Gear support as well, which is great. So Tractus into Lurry, Lurry into Requiem, Requiem into the Fiendsmith, and this will go into Heiress. Sequentia lets me fusion summon into the Lacrimosa. Lacrimosa is going to put the Fiendsmith onto our side of the field. Now we can overlay into King Caesar. We're going to imperm the commander. Again, don't really know how to beat them, so I'm just assuming that was a good hit. They got Fortress, but on the imperm column. Not that it matters much anyway, because I think they just try to destroy stuff. So we're going to use Caesar to prevent that from happening. It was definitely a bait because they have two Ancient Gear fusions, one after the other. Howitzer is going to burn and then crash, and that will allow them to summon from the deck the Ancient Gear Dark Golem. That will let them draw a bunch of stuff, which is pretty decent. So they're going to keep attacking. The win condition of that deck is basically to summon big beefy golems and then keep swinging for game in the same battle phase. But it's okay. So we're going to, this is so stupid. So I used Simul to beat over it, and then swung for some damage, and then went into my combo instead of, I don't know, activate an Archfiend for Labrynth, maybe? Anyway, Sequentia, fusion into Diasure. We now have 2 negates, and we're going to use Labrynth, and we have Ash Blossom in our hand. So they drew Harpy's Feather Duster with the really cool alternate art, forced to negate that. Activating Gear Town, popping it to bring a token out. Gear Town is going to get ashed, and then Advance got, yeah, negated because of Diasure. And then our turn, I think that's pretty much enough for game there. So yeah, attack directly. All right, so this was a sort of stun deck. I realized it's basically Evil Eye in disguise, but game 1, they drew every stun card imaginable. So they did Droll, I used Tour Guide, they ash it, and I'm like, ha! Well, game 1 is set a match. So they activate Necro Valley. Of course they do. I use Tractus into Archfiend Eccentric. That's quite a nice thing as well. So Archfiends have their own built-in out to most things. So you can just bring Eccentric. Unless they, of course, have Solemn Judgment. Lightsworn Archfiend, use Labrynth, try and go into Chaos Archfiend here. I can't remember what they had face down, but Chaos Archfiend swing for 5k. They're forced to imperm it, which was a very good choice. So they have 1,000 life points left. On their turn, they're going to normal summon Surzial, and then we're going to imperm that, and then I think it's game from there. But here is game number 2, and they go first. Evil Eye and Resurrection send some Evil Eyes into the graveyard, and they basically go off in this game. Very, very impressive board. So they have Pareidolia, and then they have Surzial. We don't open any hand traps. We play 9, it's fine. And they have 3 face down, and that's it. So we have Tour Guide into Fiendish Rhino Warrior. They activate Summon Limit of all cards. That could have been a Chaos Archfiend waiting to happen. So what I really like is that because Chaos Archfiend is the win condition, we can summon it very easily. Turn 1, turn 2 is very straightforward in this deck, unless they have Summon Limit. And they're going to use Ruler of the Evil Eyed, and we're going to use Archfiend Heiress, I guess, to bring something. Yeah, Archfiend Eccentric. Their turn, they of course have Called by the Grave. They're going to swing, I assume, for a bunch of damage. Our turn, they are going to pay some more life points, increase its attack when you use Eccentric. They're going to pop it immediately. Not much we can do. Use Tractus into Lurry. Lurry is going to summon itself. And then they're going to use Call by the Grave to stop it immediately. Otherwise, we could have gone into, like, Typhon or something. It is what it is. Yeah, so we're not winning this one. The all-important game 3, everybody. So we go first. Use Fiendsmith into Tractus. They use Droll. Of course they do. So we just set a bunch of cards and end. And then they Lightning Storm. Oh, terrible. Just terrible. Into Surzial, normal summon. And then they're going to bring Resurrection. They can bring the Evil Eye of Selene into their hands. They kind of have full combo now. But they better win this turn. Otherwise, we'll come back with a vengeance. Maybe, he says. Evil Eye Awakening. So that's going to bring Basilius. And then they're going to Link Summon, I assume. Oh no, into Gossip Shadow. So that's basically an Omni Negate. We'll bring Crimson Gaia into our hand. They're going to set Cosmic Cyclone. And our turn, activate Tractus, bring the Archfiend Eccentric, discard the Fiendish Rhino Warrior, and that makes us just draw a card instead. And of course, they have another Droll. Archfiend Eccentric is going to get Cosmic. It's just not our day. We have Crimson Gaia, and that's basically the nice thing about my opponent is that they shotgunned all of their disruptions. So here I am using Tour Guide, and then they're going to pop it immediately. But we still get to summon Deathstroke. So now we can do full Fiendsmith combo, right? So Fiendsmith Requiem into Fiendsmith, and then we can equip it, send their monster to the graveyard, and then we can bring out the other one, use Tractor's Fusion Summon, and then bring the Eccentric into our hand. We can activate it again because we never used it before. Now we can use the effect now to pop something, and then we're going to swing over it, and then that's going to be the end of our turn. And I see they have their evenly matched in their hand, but because they've got the field spell, they can't activate it. So there you go. Right, so we have Fiendsmith versus this sort of Bystial Centurion deck. So we've got Tractus, and immediately Druid Worm is going to ruin our day. Requiem into Fiendsmith, use Tractus's effect to bring Lightsworn Archfiend, and we use Falling Down, taking the Druid Worm into Chaos Archfiend. So that's a light and dark Chaos Archfiend as well, which is pretty decent. They're going to start banishing all of our stuff, which is, yeah, pretty annoying. But then we have an Imperm face down as well. So we've got like a Towers +1 disruption. Don't really know what they can do from here, so I'm just going to negate it straight away. They're going to summon Gargoyle and then end their turn because they can't really do anything against Angel. We could activate Labrynth. There you go. Bit of 4k damage. The Salamander Catalyzer goes into our hand, and then on their turn, they're going to draw Magnamute. They're going to banish our monsters, summon it, and then search for something at the end of the turn. Probably another Bystial, yeah. The Bystial Lubinin. We have Lurry, so Catalyzer can discard that, which is nice. So that automatically summons the Lurry from the graveyard. Now we can go into the Requiem plays again. So Fiendsmith, and then they lost connection. Okay, another sort of like funny deck is the food deck. So we are going first. So Rhino Warrior is going to trigger Heiress. If we've gone into Muckraker, we're going to bring the Heiress onto our side of the field. Vision Resonator, search for Crimson Gaia. Activate Labrynth. This is a really suboptimal combo. It's much better to go straight into the Deathstroke Archfiend, but if you wanted Labrynth or some sort of search, then you can do this route first. So Sequentia, summon DSRA, so that just gives us some negates early on, and then Crimson Gaia is going to, I guess, bring the Vision Resonator back. So we have Imperm, we have Simul. Simul is devastating against the food deck. So they're going to use Incantation, Talismandra, then activate their field spell, bringing lots of cards to their hand. At this point, let's go ahead and negate their ritual. They have a second ritual, and now they're trying to pop our Simul, so we may as well activate it. So now they are stuck. Unless they link this off, they can't ritual summon ever again for this turn. So yeah, pretty strong, pretty strong. They're going to summon a monster onto our side of the field. It's pretty nice, pretty nice. And then I think they've quite realized, you know, oh yeah, we're searching for all this stuff, but we can't do anything. Great. So our turn, we're going to summon Vision Resonator, and then we're going to go ahead and negate their trap card and their field spell. Tour Guide into Deathstroke, and then Chaos Angel is going to banish their card, and then we're going to go into Requiem and do all of our Fiendsmith plays from here on out. So equip Fiendsmith with Requiem, send their monster, and then bring the Vision into our hand. And now here, we can use DSRA's effect to send the other monster into the graveyard. They're going to droll us, but at this point, I don't think it matters too much because we have enough to swing for game. Yeah, we do. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, there you go. So we beat the food people. This was a really cool deck, and it was sort of like the ultimate whiff punish of the century. So this is Fiendsmith, Archfiendsmiths versus Flame Swordsman. So we're using the standard Fiendsmith combo into Lacrimosa, which summons the Weiss Lightsworn Archfiend. Bring out our other Fiendsmith that goes into Wave King Caesar. Muckraker is going to bring Weiss onto our side of the field. Use Heiress to bring Simul, activate Labrynth, target Weiss, and then banish into Terror King Archfiend, and then into Chaos Archfiend. So we have our win con here, we have a negate, and we also have a sort of like major extra deck disruption. Not that it matters too much for Flame Swordsman, let me tell you. So they have Flame Swords Realm, Moon Mirror Shields. They can kind of beat over anything they like at this particular stage. They also have Megamorph, which is a really cool throwback. They're going to negate some stuff, destroy our Wave Hiking Caesar. I guess they needed to do that, so if they needed to special summon afterwards, they're now free to do so. So they're going to bring a Roland into the hand, a Renaud, sorry. We're going to use Fiendsmith, summon it out onto the field. They're going to use Flame Swords Dance, which brings out Fighting Flame Dragon. It's all good. We can go into Requiem and then into the Fiendsmith again, so that we can send stuff into the graveyard. That dealt 3,000 damage, which is really impressive. We're going to attack most likely with Chaos Archfiend. And you'll see here, 1,300 damage plus 1,800 damage, 200 life points left. We have 7,900. You think it's all in the bag. And then they pull out this really strong move. So they got Salamandra Fusion into the ultimate Flame Swordsman, right? 2,800 attack. Check this out. So they're going to equip 3,500. They summon more monsters onto their side of the field. And then they're going to search for more equip spells. Megamorph, 6,300. Get rid of one of their monsters, equip another card. onto their ultimate Flame Swordsman. They're going to bring Roland out and then attack. That brings it from 7,800 to 15,600. I guess that's the whole point of Flame Swordsman, right? Is to just get as much power as humanly possible and then just like slice and destroy in one hit, which is exactly what they did. Okay, so Gimmick Puppets, if you're unfamiliar, it FTKs. Here we have the field spell, which makes them immune to monster effects. It's really good. I'm not really gonna try and do a play-by-play because it's really hard to know how this works. So they use Argent Chaos Force to basically rank up their Gimmick Puppets into like the evolved versions. Gimmick Puppet of Strings can destroy monsters with the string counters, and then that burns the opponent. And they also have Dark Strings as well, which again does the same sort of thing, but inflicts based on the attack rather than like the amount of counters. So the whole point is to bring monsters onto my side of the field, pop them, and then do a bunch of damage. They have Terror Baby into the Giant Grinder, and then they're going to summon Dark Strings again, and then the Grinder is going to pop it for another 3,000. Use Chaos Force into Machina. You see they've looped it now, so bring out another one, and then pop it, and then do another bit of damage, and then that's the FTK. But this is game 2. There isn't a game 3, because I think my opponent left. But anyway, Tractus into Lurry. We go first. Requiem is going to go into the Fiendsmith, and then Tractus is going to fusion summon into Lacrimosa, Lacrimosa into Weiss Lightsworn Archfiend, and then Fiendsmith is going to summon itself. That is going to overlay into Beatrice. Beatrice is going to send Heiress. Heiress is going to search for Simul Archfiends, may as well summon into Sequentia, fusion all 3 into Dies Array, equip it just so that we've got some negates here, and we have Simul Archfiends as well, which will stop all of the XZs summoning this turn. Let's see what they can do. Into Dreary Doll, into Bloody Doll, into Puppet of Strings, and then that is going to put a bunch of counters, and then they're going to attack Simul Archfiends. It's basically like a reinforcement, no replay battle, just the increased attack, and it's going to stop them in their tracks. Okay, now we're going to negate their little soldiers, which I assume is good. And then we've got a bunch of DD Crows here to disrupt their graveyard, and of course they think, oh, I can't FTK, so I'm just going to end. I don't know, maybe. Okay, so Archfiends versus Labrynth. I'm not going to lie, this deck does straight up beat me. So we have Lacrimosa into the Fiendsmith, and then that's going to overlay into Wave Hiking Caesar. And now they are going to activate all of their cards to set a bunch of cards face down, so on their turn they can pop off effectively. So we have Simul, completely useless against Labrynth because they don't really summon from the extra deck. I'm forced to stop the big welcome and the regular welcome, but then they used setting. It's really good, so they send those back. Set Crush Card Virus and Deck Devastation Virus. Woo! Okay, I didn't realize it was that kind of party. So Red Eyes Soul, bring out Red Eyes Black Dragon into Deck Devastation, get rid of everything. At least I've got a Farther and an Heiress, so I can plus a little bit, or at least equalize. Bring all their monsters onto their side of the field, and they're going to activate Crush Card basically straight after. So there you go, Crush Card Virus, and getting rid of the Bone Archfiend. And then I'm just going to dump a bunch more stuff just to kind of mill a little bit. They're going to activate Welcome Labrynth into Labrynth Archfiends, pretty decent. Look at how high its attack is. And then into cards of the Redstone, draw some stuff. Into Labyrinth Servant, Big Welcome Labrynth, and then I think they couldn't do any damage for some reason. Bone Archfiend into Big Welcome, and that's going to bring Lady into their hand. Labyrinth Archfiend is going to summon itself, and then they're going to set a bunch of cards face down. Stovey is going to summon itself and immediately bring another trap. So they've got 2 fair welcomes here. So we've got Vision, and Vision's going to bring Crimson. Crimson is going to bring the Vision into our hand. Then we're going to use Fiendsmith, Moon of the Closed Sky, into Underworld Goddess of a Closed World. And this really carried me for the rest of the game. So their turn, they're going to have Red Eyes Fusion into Red Eyes Black Dragon, the ultimate disrespect. They can't destroy it anyway, so this is the one card that can deal with Red Eyes Dark Dragoon pretty effectively. Big Welcome Labrynth is going to get rid of Crimson Gaia. Honestly, I thought Underworld Goddess was going to lose pretty heavily because they have Fair Welcome Labrynth. That does out Underworld Goddess, but I don't think they read the card. So it's working out in my favor, people. Okay, so they activate Big Welcome Labrynth. We're going to negate it. They're going to bring Labrynth onto their side of the field, summon Chandra, and then attack. Use Fair Welcome Labrynth on our face down. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if they just destroyed this, they would have started to bring it back. I don't know if it would have changed the outcome much because they are kind of out of gas here, but it certainly would have helped. So we have negated their card. Crimson Resonator brings Vision, and then we're just going to summon Fiendsmith, bring out Vision, go into Requiem, summon a regular Fiendsmith, go into Sequentia, and then Fusion Summon into Disarray. That is going to equip, so at least we have some negates now. Bring out Bone Archfiend, equip Disarray with the Sequentia, and then just try and swing for game from there on out. Right, so game 2, set 4 and pass, we drew into Harpy's Feather Duster. That basically ended the whole game, to be honest. So all of their cards get destroyed. They started searching for some stuff, bring out Lady, and then they realized, you know, Fiendsmith Tractus into Lurry into Requiem, and then Fiendsmith is going to send one of their monsters into the graveyard. So that's what we're going to do right now. Goodbye. And then Tractus, Fusion Summon, and then bring out the Fiendsmith, Special Summon, and then they surrendered. So there you go. Right, so now we're against Raidraptors. 2 monsters into Raider's Knight. This is me just tinkering around with Ghost Mourner, so I just shotgun that first of all. You kind of want to make sure that they don't have access to 2 level 4s on their side of the field. So as much as you can do that as possible, the better. So they've got 2 now, of course they do. Summon another monster, go into Weiss Strict. So here I impermed, and now they literally have no other way into a second level 4. So there you go. That ended their whole turn. They're going to Ash our Fiendsmith, but we have 2 Tractors, so there you go. So Tractus into Lurry, you know, you've seen it all before, people. Into Requiem. Requiem is going to go ahead, summon the Fiendsmith, bring Requiem onto our monster, send their monster to the graveyard, bring out another Fiendsmith. We can overlay if we want, but we're going to Fusion into Lacrimosa first, bring out the Fiendsmith from the graveyard, swing for some damage, and then we will probably overlay in main phase 2. So that's going to go into Wave Hiking Caesar, and then also a Simul Archfiends as well. So a deck like Raidraptors, Simul once again is an FTK, what can I say? So we need to chain because Lacrimosa is going to send Lurry, and we need that so that Tractus is live next turn effectively. So they are going to bring some monsters out to go into Raider's Knight, try to overlay, but will Simul in its tracks, stopping it from doing anything. So they can summon as much as they want now, but they can't exceed, so they're definitely not winning this turn. Our turn, we have Tractus. Well, it would have been into Lurry, but then they surrendered. This is a very quick game. Lightsworn Archfiends versus the new White Forest deck. So we're going to go into Rhino Warrior, send Weiss, go into Muckraker, send the Heiress. Heiress is going to search for Simul, then we use Labrynth, target the Weiss, banish the Muckraker, into Bone, into Chaos Archfiend, set the Simul, and end our turn. So we've got like 2 disruptions there. They're going to use Toy Box, which I've heard does wonderful things for the White Forest deck. Set 2 of their monsters. Use another Toy Box, why not? Destroy both of them, and that's going to trigger both of their effects. I believe that lets them summon themselves, and now they're going to activate their monster effects, searching for some things. Sylve of the White Forest is going to search for the spell card. So that's Legends of the White Forest. Here I can see a synchro summoning waiting to happen. So Simul Archfiends is going to stop that. They're going to go into Draco Berserker of the Tenni, and then they're going to surrender because they realize, I can't synchro summon anymore. And our monster has 500 more attack than their monster. So they couldn't do anything. So they basically would have had to like end their turn from there, unless they had something in their extra deck, like a Nightmare Cerberus, which I don't think they did. So Fiendsmith Archfiends, or Archfiendsmiths versus Vampires. So we're going to use Tractus, we're going to use the Fiendsmith into Sanctus, summon the token. We want to do this as quickly as possible to bring out an early disruption. So you could go into Wave Hiking Caesar, or you can go into Beatrice, either's fine. Bone Archfiend, send Vision Resonator. Resonator is going to bring Crimson Gaia, and then into High Wave King Caesar, and then we could bring the Resonator back into the hand. Then we're going to go into News Reporter, and then use Bone Archfiend into Weiss, and that's going to go into Chaos Archfiend, set the Imperm, and end our turn. So yeah, pretty beasty, pretty beasty. They're going to try and Imperm straight away, which turns off a lot of our disruptions. All that hard work gone to waste. They're going to bring out the Familiar, pay some life points to search for more vampire monsters. Vampire's Domain is out now. Use Retainer, again, paying some life points, searching for all good stuff. Activate another domain. We are hanging on to our Imperm until now so that we don't get our Chaos Archfiend to get destroyed. So let's negate their Vamp. They're going to summon Frowlane, beef up their monster's attack so they can beat over our Wave Hiking Caesar. But then their Domain is going to restore their life points again. Really, really interesting concept, Vampires. It's a really cool deck. We Hadru Nibiru. Anyway, bring the Vision Resonator, banish it off of Labrynth to bring out Archfiend Emperor. Try and destroy their monster. Their counter trap is going to eat us alive, and then they're going to gain life points. Do they do that? Yeah, they do. Anyway, Requiem into Fiendsmith, and then Fiendsmith is going to get equipped. Use Fiendsmith to disrupt, so that gets rid of the Fraulein anyway, and then smack them for 3,000, and then again for 2,300, and that's kind of all we can do. So their turn, they're going to draw Div Incarnate. They have a bunch of searches and summoning cards still, so as long as they can pay life points, they can make life points. Our turn, Salamander Catalyzer. Not great, but we can use Requiem to send their retainer and use Fiendsmith to summon itself into Sequentia. And Sequentia is going to fusion summon into DS Array, and then we're going to equip it just so that we've got some negates here, and they're going to bring out Scourge, and now we can probably just negate their monster. Yeah, so we can negate both of those cards actually, and I think that's kind of all we can do here. So Labrynth is a final thing, bring out Archfiend Empress, and then smack them for a bunch of damage, and it's game. This is a Cubics matchup. Pretty cool deck. So Tour Guide into Fiendish Rhino Warrior, into Muckraker. We're going to send Heiress into the graveyard, bring an Archfiend Labrynth into our hand, then we're going to revive it, and Vision Resonator is going to search for Crimson Gaia. So it's nice, keeping our hand nice and healthy. And then we're going to go into Desrook Archfiend, going into our Fiendsmith plays. So Fiendsmith Requiem into the Fiendsmith into Sequentia, Fusion Summon into DS Array. So we've got that disruption there with the negates. Crimson Gaia is going to add a Vision Resonator. So we've got Simil, we've got Archfiend Eccentric, we've got Nibiru. It's pretty good all around, to be honest. So they have Cubic Karma, searching for a bunch of stuff. They're going to use Twin Twisters. I'm just going to let that through, don't worry about it. But we're going to chain with Simil, just in case they can fusion summon multiple times or something. Dharma, that's going to get negated in addition to their Crimson Nova, so that we don't lose a bunch of damage, although it can't be affected. So yeah, my bad. So we still lost 3,000 anyway. Anyway, Eccentric Archfiend, destroying their face down, Unification. Fiendsmith into Tractus, basically full combo here, so into Lurry. Lurry is going to summon itself. DS Array can start negating a few things. Go into Chaos Angel. It has more attack, so we should be able to banish it now. Unification is going to bring out a Meteor Cubic Vessel into Cubic Karma. I don't think that matters too much now, so we can summon Fiendsmith, summon this into Scarlight Red Dragon Archfiend, try and blow up the field. Nothing happened, so we're just going to flip them face down and attack them. Unification is going to bring out another one, and then that is going to bring the Ascension, which is pretty decent, but we're going to go into Little Knight, just banish that Ascension from the graveyard to stop them from doing all those shenanigans. So they have to try and desperately now, I think, to bring Crimson Nova back onto the field. They need, what, one more Cubic monster, and it's just not meant to be. So send a third Unification, go into Dreadnoid, attack. Crimson Gaia is going to revive Scarlight Red Dragon Archfiend from the graveyard, and then they're going to try and burn for 2,000 damage. So we have Nibiru now. I don't think that was the best play in the world, but anyway, I got rid of it. I summoned Arrow Nibiru at the expense of like everything in my field. So Fiendsmith, Crimson Gaia, and then they lost connection from there. Right, so this is like Tenyi Swordsoul versus Archfiendsmiths. So Fiendsmith gets ashed. Nothing else. So we just set an Heiress and set an Infirm. We have a Nibiru though, so you know, it's not too bad. They're going to go into Chixiao, and we're going to negate that, stop them from searching. But their Tenyi monster still brings out the, what is it, Emergence, I think that's called. And then they're going to summon. So this is where the Baron hit feels really hard, because they couldn't summon a negate early on. They can only summon Cheng Ying. So we went ahead and brought out Nibiru. And they used triple Tactics Talents and the triple Tactics Thrust. It's pretty strong stuff. So we're going to go into Moon of the Closed Sky. Me thinking, oh yeah, I can, you know, use Underworld Goddess of a Closed World on a token. Good one. Anyway, Fiendsmith into Requiem. Requiem equip itself. May as well get rid of that token. And then we're going to summon another Fiendsmith from the graveyard. Overlay into Beatrice. Beatrice is going to send Heiress. Heiress is going to bring Bone Archfiend, summon it. Go into Muckraker, and then bring out Bone Archfiend. Use Labrynth. Banish the Muckraker into Weiss, and then Synchro into Chaos Archfiend. So attack the Tenyi Vishuda, and because it's banished, now it can't do its shenanigans where it spins my cards. So we get rid of Vision Resonator. Resonator is going to bring Crimson. Crimson is going to bring the Fiendish Golem. So that's another disrupt. We've got 2 disrupts here. So pretty good, pretty good. So anyway, long one is going to bring out a token into Sinister Sovereign and then Fusion Destiny into Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer, which is pretty good. So Fiendish Golem trying to force a Destroyer effect. So that is going to let us float into Chaos Angel, which is going to banish the Sinister Sovereign, and Sinister Sovereign is going to banish the Chaos Angel. All in all, it kind of worked out. It kind of equalized there. Crimson Gaia is going to bring Vision, and then we're going to go into Yama. Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer is going to pop it, which is not bad because Aruha can pop cards in order to proc Yama. So can we deal 8,000 damage? Let's see. Aruha, destroy Crimson. Summon it. Yama, bring out Chaos Archfiend. Summon, and then that swings for game. So there you go. All right, so game 2. So this is best of 3. We have Fiendsmith into Tractus, Tractus into Lurry. So again, you've seen it all. This is standard Fiendsmith lines. So into Requiem, into the Fiendsmith. Summon the other one onto the field, and then that's a rank 6 exceed waiting to happen. So we've got Caesar, Rhino Warrior into Muckraker. Rhino Warrior is going to send Vision. Vision is going to bring basically Crimson into Fiendish Golem, and that's 1 more disrupt. And then we use Muckraker. Great stuff. We had Heiress in our hands. We get an Heiress search as well. So we've got Simil, Imperm, Golem, and High Wave King Caesar. And of course, they have Harpy's Feather Duster. So we're going to chain with Simil, which means they can only synchro summon once. So that's not too bad. We're going to try and stop as many of these special summons as possible. Of course, they have triple tactics thrust and triple tactics talents again, and Fusion Destiny again. It's like they rigged their hand. We're going to have Farfa banishing the Destroyer so that they don't attack into our Muckraker. We're going to bring Fiendish Rhino Warrior onto our side of the field. Fiendsmith, summon itself, and then go into Requiem, bring out another Fiendsmith, and that's going to go into Sequentia, Fiendish Rhino Warrior into Weiss. Sequentia is going to bring out Lacrimosa, and then into Yama. Yama is going to send some stuff back and search for Aruha. Aruha is going to go into the Super Producer. Producer is going to destroy itself to bring out Bone into Chaos Archfiend. I could have easily have gone into a negate. That would have done everything, really, because then I could have stopped the Destroyer. And I probably could have just swung for game next turn. But I was like, I just want to end on Chaos Archfiend. I just want to do it, people. So I did, dealt a bunch of damage, and it's coming to bite me. Because, of course, Destroyer popped it immediately. And I did not expect Arch Nemesis Protoss to hit the field. So we can't summon any dark monsters. But we do have the Fiendsmith fella. So we're going to just negate their Chi-Shao. So we can go into Fiendsmith and Requiem. That's going to send Protoss. And then the end of our turn, we can't do anything else. So definitely, if I just brought out a negate instead of Chaos Archfiend, that would have bought us a turn, and then we could have swung for game after that, but it's okay. So they're going to attack, and it's 1-1, Swordsoul versus Archfiends. Okay, so game number 3, I think we go first. So Crimson Gaia, try and bait out an Ash Blossom, basically, so bring Fiendish Golem straight to the hand. Summon Tour Guide, and we're going to set Fiendish Golem and end, so we kind of drew nothing else, really. They're going to use Fusion Destiny. Let's just Ash that, let's just get that out of the way. Triple Tactics Talents. They just drew it every single turn, because why not? And then Monk of the Tenyi into Vishuda, and then into the other Tenyi monsters, into Draco Berserker. And then we're going to use Fiendish Golem to try and just keep that monster out of our way. Thank you very much. Gaia into Golem, then Tractus into the token. Then we're going to try and go through our Fiendsmith plays. So Fiendsmith is going to get impermed. Of course it is. So I guess we just summon Chaos Angel, a light and dark one. Summon our Fiendsmith back, and then we're just going to attack for a bunch of damage. So it's not game just yet, but that's still a pretty sizable chunk. So they're going to bring Harpy's Feather Duster into the mix. We're going to banish their Berserker again, and then they're going to go ahead and end their turn. So they can't really do anything now. So our turn, swing for game, and that's 2-1 to Archfiendsmiths. Alright, so this is a sort of like Lightsworn Runick build. So they have Minerva onto their side. They drew evenly matched Mystery Rune. So activate Crimson Gaia, it gets destroyed. Use Fiendsmith into Sanctus. Sanctus, summon a token. Use the other Tractus, send Fiendish Rhino Warrior, send Heiress, and then that's going to bring Labrynth. Use Eccentric, destroy their evenly matched. Pretty decent. Send Vision Resonator off of Bones Effect, realizing, oh yeah, Crimson Gaia doesn't exist anymore. Anyway, let's summon Chaos Archfiend. Go Fiendsmith into itself, attack, Minerva is going to pop our monster. A bunch of cards are going to activate. We're going to summon Chaos Angel. That is going to banish their dragon. And then they're going to summon Wolf. And then we're going to attack and then go into SP Little Knight to banish the Wolf. So we're kind of trying to stop everything that we possibly can. We're going to activate Runick Tip into Brilliant Flame or Flashing Fire. And then they can't do anything else because they just kind of bricked really. So we're going to attack. They activate Evenly Matched. We're forced to get rid of everything but Fiendish Golem. And then of course they drew the one card that can stop it. And we're just hard drawing Nibiru's all day long. So annoying. So anyway, send a monster, attack for 1800. They drew nothing, and we had enough damage for game. So Archfiends win. Okay, so this is another Labrynth game. So Bone Archfiend is, of course, going to get ashed, but we have Fiendsmith into Tractus. So we activate Tractus into Lurry, and then we're going to go through our full Fiendsmith plays, assuming that my opponent has no other hand traps. I thought to myself, oh yes, Chaos Angel, Light and Dark. It's going to be really strong. And of course, the one deck that can beat it is, of course, Labrynth. So it doesn't do anything against traps, of course. They're just going to go off and do full combo. You know, instead of me ending on, I don't know, some disruption, I end on a towers and it's going to get obliterated very, very soon. So anyway, Fiendsmith into Requiem, try and send one of their monsters. Lost Wind is going to negate Chaos Angel, and then Welcome Labrynth is going to bring Silver Castle out. And then we're going to go into Muckraker. Muckraker is going to revive the Chaos Angel, so we're going to banish Silver Castle, but of course Big Welcome is forced to stop that. Bone Archfiend is going to be summoned, and then they're going to use the Dharma Cannon to stop that. So back to the front, bring out a monster onto their side of the field. Labrynth Servant is going to search for another lady, bring that out. It's going to swing over our Chaos Angel. Fiendsmith, bring itself out. They're going to search for more trap cards. Coup Clock, bring itself into the hand, so that basically makes their glitch live if they choose to use it. We're going to use Fiendsmith into Requiem. And then, of course, they're going to use Welcome Labrynth into Stovey. We're going to equip and try and pop some stuff. Stovey is going to just get rid of itself. So we try to force them to use their interaction straight away. They're going to use Glitch on Crimson Gaia, bring Vision Resonator into the graveyard, use Labrynth into Weiss, into Chaos Archfiend, and then they use Lost Wind to halve the monster's attack. I couldn't believe it. So they use Welcome Labrynth to bring back to the front and Servant Ariana. They use Coup Clock, bring that Ariana back into their hand, back to the front again. Labrynth, once they get going, super snowbally, really, really strong. There isn't really much I can do. So Tractus into Lurry, try and go through our Fiendsmith combos. Of course, Nibiru is useless against Labrynth as well. They summon like twice in one turn. Try and go into something again here, but then, you know, Ice Dragon's Prison is going to just get rid of Chaos Archfiend, and that's basically going to be the end of that. So now what I really want to do is show you the deck list, because it is vastly different to the Archfiend decks that I have made in the past. And if anything, it actually uses more Archfiend cards than ever before. So here you go, here is the deck list. And one thing that you might have noticed is that I have hand traps. So I actually have 9 hand traps in this Archfiend deck, which is if you're familiar with the deck, it is completely unheard of. So for now, I mean, it's pretty much wherever you want really, but I've got 3 Nibiru, 3 Ash, and 3 Imperm. And then in your side deck, you can have whatever you like and then just side in accordingly, right? But in terms of Archfiend cards themselves, we've got 1 Emperor, 1 Empress, 3 Bone, 1 Weiss. We have 1 Deathstroke Archfiend, 3 Heiress, an Eccentric, and then we've got 3 Labrynth, a Archfiend Glitch, and a Simul Archfiends. And then a small, tight, concise Fiendsmith package is 3 Fiendsmith. Then we have 3 Tractus, 1 Sanctus, and then a Fabled Lurry just to kind of get things going. I should probably explain what the Fiendsmith cards are. So Fiendsmith is a new archetype. Some people are loosely basing it off of Devil May Cry, to each their own, but effectively what they do is allow you to send Fiendsmith cards into the graveyard to search for other Fiendsmith cards. Then once the Fiendsmith is on the field, you can equip cards like Fiendsmith Requiem onto it in order to gain additional effects. There are also monsters like Fiendsmith the Array, which if it's equipped with stuff can negate cards. And because they recycle themselves, you can kind of do this sort of thing every single turn. One of the most important things, at least for Archfiends, is the fusion monster Fiendsmith Lacrimosa. So when that is fusion summoned, you can summon a light fiend from the graveyard onto your side of the field. Weiss Lightsworn Archfiend is a light fiend, and it's a tuner, which means Chaos Archfiend is live basically all the time. So you can summon it off of Lacrimosa. You can also turbo it out off of Archfiend Labrynth. It's really good. The card that basically enables the whole Fiendsmith strategy is Fiendsmith Tractus. So this is a normal spell that lets you add a light fiend monster from your deck to your hand, and then you discard for effect, not for cost, which means you can add Weiss Lightsworn Archfiend if you really want to. You can also add the Fiendsmith and go into plays like that. And also because, as I say, you discard for effect, if you've got cards like Heiress in your hand, you can discard it in order to gain a search. More often than not, you want to bring out the likes of Fabled Lurry, so when that's discarded, it immediately special summons itself. So you can go Tractus into Lurry, discard, summon, and then link into Requiem in order to go into your further Fiendsmith plays. Sanctus basically does the same thing as Fabled Lurry, so it just summons a Light Fiend token, and then you go into Fiendsmith Requiem from there. You have a really tight sort of like Bone Archfiend package. So Bone Archfiend by itself is a great normal summon. So it's a 1-card Soul of Rage, but it can also go into Fiendish Golem as well. So you basically summon it, you activate its effect, and then you send Vision Resonator from the deck into the graveyard, increase its level. Vision Resonator will then search for the likes of Crimson Gaia. So now you can either, right, use Crimson Gaia to bring Fiendish Golem into your hand. So this really depends on what hand you've got, right? So that's a banish. Or you can bring Vision Resonator back. Because you now have a level 5 or higher Dark, special summon the Resonator, go into Soul King Yama. That will search for Aruha. So that brings that out. And because you've got Crimson Gaia, you just go ahead and pop that to summon itself. And that will allow you to link into Soul of Rage. So at like a bare minimum, you've got Soul of Rage into Little Knight for 2 to 3 disruptions. However, if you happen to have Heiress in your hand, this is more of a 2-card combo, you can use Bone Archfiend's effect, target itself, same sort of thing, right? So Vision Resonator into the graveyard, increase the level, bring Vision Resonator into your hand through the likes of Crimson Gaia. So the nice thing about this is it's basically, it's kind of like tour guide at home. So you bring Vision Resonator into your hand, special summon it, link both of those into Muckraker from the Underworld, and then here you can use her effect, bring the Bone Archfiend back, use Heiress's effect, search for Archfiend Labrynth, activate Labrynth, target Bone, banish Muckraker into Weiss Lightsworn Archfiend, and then that's your light and dark tuners all set up there to go straight into Chaos Archfiend at 5,000 attack as well. So keep in mind, Chaos Archfiend can attack everything, and if it dies, it goes into Chaos Angel. The Fiendsmith by itself is basically a 1-card negate, but it's really flexible. So you can use Fiendsmith into Tractus. If you activate Tractus, that will search for Lurry. So we'll just bring Lurry into the hand, and because we're required to discard, Lurry's effect will then summon itself onto our side of the field. So you go into Requiem from here, use Requiem's effect to bring out another Fiendsmith from the deck, and now you've got this situation where you can summon the other one from the graveyard by putting a Light Fiend back into the deck, and you have 2 level 6s. So here you can go into any rank 6. So you can either go into Wave High King Caesar for like some negates. You can also use Tractus to fusion summon. That will give you enough material to fuse into DS Array for some negates. Or you can go into the likes of Beatrice, and Beatrice allows you to set up your Archfiend plays as well. So you can get rid of a monster, send, for example, Archfiend Heiress into the graveyard, and this brings a disruption into your hand. So keep in mind, we haven't normal summoned yet, so I could go into Bone Archfiend, which will then go through its plays into, for example, Soul of Rage, but more likely you want to search for a trap, such as Simul Archfiends, and then use that as your disruption. So one thing that's really nice about Archfiends is that Simul Archfiends is basically a dimensional barrier. So if you link summon, you can't link summon again. If you exceed summon, you can't exceed summon again. So long as you've got that type of monster on the field, it locks you into that type of monster. Because we have a floodgate that's so strong, the number of disruptions that you end on, while like really nice, Simul does the job more often than not. So you can kind of get away with having less disruptions so long as you have access to Simul. Obviously it depends on the deck, right? But speaking of floodgates, Fiendsmith itself with Beatrice can do some really nasty things. So you activate Tractus, right? Go into Lurry. Lurry is going to discard itself, summon onto our side of the field. Basically, we're going to do the same thing, but go into Beatrice. Right, and now instead of Archfiend Heiress, we're going to use Beatrice to send good old Transaction Rollback into the graveyard. And then on their turn, we're going to activate Beatrice again. And you probably have already figured it out. We're going to send Ghost Meets Girl and Masterful Mayakashi Shiranui Saga. So this card, immediately all you need to do is activate Transaction Rollback, activate Ghost Meets Girl, and this stops both players for this turn special summoning monsters from the hand, deck, or extra deck. So it kind of just shuts down the turn. It's a bit like King Calamity in that sense. So yeah, very powerful. You can easily cheese that out if you wanted to get like a quick win or something. And then next turn, you know, try and go into Chaos Archfiend, swing for game, something like that. Off of a single tour guide, pray it doesn't get ashed, you can summon a classic Deathstroke Archfiend. So Deathstroke is a level 3 and it's a light fiend. And you know what that means. And we can go into Fiendsmith Requiem straight from the Deathstroke Archfiend, which means we can go into Fiendsmith and we can do our entire Fiendsmith combo. So from these two, we can now link summon into Sequentia. Sequentia has the effect where you can fusion summon a fiend fusion monster using materials from your graveyard, and it shuffles them back into the deck. So we at least have 3 in our graveyard now. So we have the choice. We can just bring out Disruption, or we can go into Lacrimosa by sending, for example, Deathstroke and Requiem back, which allows us then to use Lacrimosa's effect to special summon the Fiendsmith from the graveyard or add it back into the hand. So 2 things that you can do. If you add it to the hand and you hadn't used Tractus yet or Sanctus, you can then discard Fiendsmith, search for it, and then activate it and then go into your plays. Or you can special summon it and go into your rank 6 plays from there. Also, if my opponent had a field, at this point in time, I can use Moon of the Closed Sky into Underworld Goddess of a Closed World, because that'd be a link 2 into their monster, so 2, 3, and then another one 4, and then our monster is 5 into Underworld Goddess of a Closed World. And we haven't actually used our Fiendsmith cards yet either, so we can send that back, bring it out, and then also further go into like Beatrice or Wave Hiking Caesar for some additional disruptions. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, I'll see you around.